One, two, three.
In May of 2012, 6 Ball State students and 1 professor ventured overseas to the United Kingdom. While there, we studied the differences between United States media and the United Kingdom media. After several hours of watching British television, listening to British radio, and talking to several professors, media representatives, and British citizens, we discovered just how different the two cultures are.
I think the UK has a sense of irony in its humour that America doesn't seem to have. And I think that's what I like, British sense of humour, the irony. Americans don't seem to do irony.
I think the British media is quite open in what it broadcasts, but the BBC does seem more limited than Channel 4 or Channel 5 or ITV or whatever in the way that the type of programmes that they put on.
I think it's quite good, especially but like the BBC for news and stuff is very unbiased, or it seems that way from a viewer's perspective anyway. Like ITV is a bit tabloidy, but Channel 4 is very liberal. But the BBC giving just the news facts as it is, I think that's a good thing.
They are so much more comfortable with exploring sexuality.
Many people believe British media is more open, whereas that is mostly true with shows like Embarrassing Bodies, a show where British citizens talk about various health conditions, from skin conditions to psychological problems on national television. However, there are still occasions where the U.S. media is more open. In 2006, another installment of the James Bond series was released. Casino Royale ventured in a more violent and less sexual path. Where the U.S. media did not necessarily touch the subject, British media did.
There was a big debate about Casino Royale on the grounds that it depicted violence and it depicted sex, which in a James Bond film are kind of necessary and kind of integral to it in a way, you know what I mean? But there was a big debate because let me get this right, the movie depicted quite a lot of unusually graphic violence for a James Bond movie film. I think there's a scene early on, it's a long time since I've seen it, but there's a scene early on where there's a fight in the bathroom and the Bond character gets the villain and basically just kind of mashes his face into one of those wash basins. And it's really, it's not like a sock on the jaw or a distant gunshot. He has him by the back of the head and he's just pounding his face into this wash basin. And, let me get this right, there were sex scenes in it as well, but they were really toned down. The sex scenes were censored. They had to be kind of soft and there was a lot of implication and all that kind of stuff, Whereas with the violence, it was felt it was all right to depict it fairly graphically, even by a James Bond standard. And there was a lot of debate here over that because a lot of people felt it should have been the other way round. That there's nothing wrong with representing sex because it's kind of what people do in a way, Whereas depicting that kind of violence was sort of dangerous. It was, some people are saying it's actually more invidious to represent graphic violence than it is to represent, the kind of sex you would get in a James Bond movie film. And there was a lot of debate about that because our movies here are rated like yours are in terms of what kind of audience is allowed to watch them. And that movie, Casino Royale, it got a particular kind of rating because they'd censored the sex, but the fairly graphic violence was permitted. And a lot of British people thought it was kind of strange.
I think we're pretty liberal over here when it comes to sex and drugs and TV.
I think like going back to the whole Jersey Shore versus Geordie Shore, I think Geordie Shore is a lot more explicit. It's almost like they pretty much watched them having sex, whereas in Jersey Shore they close the door and you can hear them or something. Whereas in Geordie Shore, pretty much just watching them.
They're both post-10, aren't they?
Yeah, it's post-10 o'clock, so you still can't say much.
America is glam, Britain is drab. At least that is what you see when watching various reality shows and soap operas from either country. Police Interceptors and Cops are two similar nature shows, but the actual show is very different. How does the reality perceived in these shows play out in a person's belief of the other culture or even of their own culture?
A police interceptor can smell a lie.
You got any gear on you? Can you stink of it, mate?
No, I don't.
That's it. What did my mate just say?
They don't fall for Essex boy charm.
Slap on the wrist. Can't I just give you like 130 quid there?
Doesn't work like that.
And they stay in peak condition.
We used to be able to roll on people to stop them running away. We can't do that anymore.
Well, most of them do. The new series of Police Interceptors starts Friday at 8 on...
Yeah, I mean, like the cop thing's a really good point. I've watched that one in Britain a couple of times, and it is just policemen stopping people who are speeding and saying, please don't speed, but really you rather didn't, because it's terribly naughty, now have a nice day. Whereas in the States, if it doesn't end in someone getting shot in the head, why would anybody watch that? It's got to be drama, it's got to be...
But I mean, like, I think the best word is like a hyper-reality.
Yeah.
Like, America is so full of fake, you know...
Well, what the problem is that what that does is it exaggerates the difference between ordinary Americans' everyday lives and American life as it's projected back to them by your media.
Well, not
so
only
you live
that,
your day-to-day life and it's fine, and then you watch your TV shows and you think, wow, I'm really aware of the difference between my life and whatever that is.
Yeah, well, not only
here,
that,
I think here that gap's closer. You know, you can live your ordinary everyday life in Britain and then you watch your TV show and you think, yeah, that's...
I think that's the interesting thing as to why so many British people or your students are fascinated with America, because they see all of that hype. They don't see the normal American life, which is just the same.
And they never will, because it's not interesting and exciting enough.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
Shit! Fuck. Cunt. Fuck. Bugger. Merde. Bloody. Fuck. Cunt. Cunt. Fuck. Cocksucker motherfucker. I love swearing. Bollocks. Fuck off. It starts with C and ends with T. And cunt. Fuck. I don't have fun. Bollocks. Fuck. My favorite swear word is fuck. Cunt. Fuck. Shit. Fucking asshole. Fucking wanker. Cocksucker. Bugger. Fuck. 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 I like cunt. Cunt! Shite. Shit fuck. Shit face. Goddamn son of a bitch. Cocksucker. Douchebag. See you next Tuesday. Mine's shite. She's lying. Buggeration. Pitalanda. Slobblocks. Fooey. Insufferable car. Fuck. England.
Cursing and swearing are complicated subjects. With watershed hours in both countries, both see swearing differently. In the UK, it is more common to swear in everyday situations, but it can still get censored. An American television show, Daria, produced by MTV in the late 1990s, an episode portrays Guy Fawkes Day. Certain words or phrases were not censored on American television, but were when aired in the UK. It can be easily overlooked, but words have different meanings across borders. Wanker and bollocks are prime examples.
I'm what you would call a professor at, in the English department, although we don't use that word here very much. I swear all the time, and my students would think it was really weird if I didn't. They would think, well, what's the matter with him? If you go, if you don't say to students, what the fuck's going on with this, they would think that you were putting on some kind of phony manner, and they would think it was odd. Because it's unnatural. There's loads of great stories about cussing, I think. In Glasgow, people use the C word as a term of affection. Not so much through here. But it's completely accepted between men to use that of each other as a kind of affectionate, familial term. In America, the C word's completely taboo as I.
There are, in a way, no taboos now. Swearing is kind of everywhere. It doesn't get asterisked in the newspapers anymore, generally. And you hear it on TV, you hear it on the radio.
Are there certain words you're not allowed to say, or any certain points of the day you're not allowed to say anything?
Yeah,
or is it just
radio is much stricter than TV for some weird reason. And you can get fined if you do say certain swear words or blaspheme, apparently. I think there are some sort of archaic laws that do still exist.
I think everything should be covered. I don't even like that word taboo because it's there for a reason. I don't understand why people have to hate on it so much. It's ridiculous. That's the biggest problem with the whole world, is that we cut back on what we say. And sticks and stones, man, if you're nice to the person next to you, they're gonna be nice to the person next to them. And I don't think anything should be off topic. I think we should talk about everything. I think it should be appropriate how we talk about it. Like, I mean, there's no reason to be rude about it, but there's no reason to censor what we say unless it's extremely cruel. And then you gotta think about the next person next to you.
The next time you partake of British or American media, think about what could be on television just an 8-hour flight away. It may surprise you. Now go watch some television and see for yourself the differences between British and American media.